Hello and welcome to the Gaggle Wobble Challenge, and if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Samuely. With me today, of course, is co-founder of the Gaggle, Peter Lavelle. So, Peter, back in November, December of last year, we talked a lot about this partnership between Donald Trump and Elon Musk, and it seemed to us to be a very odd kind of a partnership because first of all, Elon Musk had been a Democrat. He'd never been a Republican up until very recently. But also that on issue after issue, he and Trump were really not on the same wavelength. But nonetheless, they were very, very friendly. Essentially, Musk had an open invitation. He could spend any time he wanted in Mar-a-Lago, and I think he had an apartment there
Yeah.
at Mar-a-Lago.
Open liquor bill
Exactly, open liquor bill, and then he even got a position in the administration. Some of this new thing of the Department of Government Efficiency. He and Vivek Ramaswamy were heading it up. Vivek, was shown the door quite quickly.
quite quickly. Yeah.
Yes,
He was shown the door. He didn't leave. He was shown the
he was
door.
shown the door, and but Musk kind of carried on, even as story after story appeared in the media of really, tense relations between Musk and the rest of the administration, until finally, even Trump got fed up with him. And there are obviously many factors that played into it, but now they've gone their separate ways. And very strangely, at least I thought it was strange, Musk on the way out the door really unleashed a tirade against Trump, alleging that he's in the Epstein files and that there's a sort of connection with.
Everybody, if Trump were in the Epstein files, we would have learned about it a long time ago.
That's
Okay.
right, exactly. We knew
Because
that.
it would have been just one file. The whole thing, wall-to-wall files, the only one that would count was that real thing went there with Donald Trump's name on it, and mystery solved.
That's right, exactly. So, we know that they knew each other and were kind of friends, 20 years ago. But Epstein was friends with many, many people. That doesn't mean that he's in the files or that he was on the Lolita Express and all the rest of it. That, as you say, Peter, we would have known about that. Um, so he unleashed all that. And Trump, in comparison, has been fairly restrained, though he has threatened to cut government contracts,
Yeah, you're
which
going to go after it. Don't insult someone, go for their wallet.
for the
Okay.
well for the SpaceX. But more ominously, Steve Bannon insists that at some point Elon Musk lived in the United States illegally. He would overstay his visa, and given that, he's not entitled to American citizenship because he had spent some time in the country illegally. So
You spell El Salvador.
exactly. So Bannon is saying we should just strip him of his American citizenship.
Oh, our MAGA friends. Well, okay. A lot's been said on this, and George and I will be very brief. Okay. We called it from day one. This was not going to last. Okay. They're very different people. It on the one hand, entrepreneurs, oligarchs like Elon Musk, they hate regulators. They hate people get in their way. And you have a position in the White House. Oh, you're in the West Wing.
Yeah.
He had his Rolodex of
Right.
people he wanted to take care of.
Right.
Okay. And that's not a conspiracy. That's not conjecture. That is fact. Okay. He went after people that he didn't like because they'd been going after him. That's part of doing business in the world. I don't care what country it is. Okay. Um, from a personality, I'm not a psychologist, but these two guys are really, really different in many ways. And in other ways, they're very, very similar. You can only have one alpha, everyone. There's no such thing as, dual emperors. Okay. It doesn't last. Okay. And plus, I don't want to weigh in this because it's so easy to do, but Musk has some behavioral issues.
Well, and that I think the behavioral issue is that came up in that article that came out in the New York Times. That I think was almost certainly true that he has a drug problem. Now, these drugs are evidently prescription drugs. There's ketamine, which is an anesthetic, but he takes it in considerable excess. I think he takes. I think he took ecstasy as well, and a number of things about his odd behavior are explicable, if there is indeed a record of his abusing drugs. I mean,
Hey,
remember
George,
how he was
I don't.
prancing up and down at a
I
rally?
don't know if you remember. This was years ago now, and when I was reading about it, because it was a ongoing saga for the yellow press, let's put it that way. Um, you know, I knew he was the Tesla guy. I knew he was the spaceship guy, the rockets and all that. But I didn't pay really much attention to him until he was then officially was called Twitter. He's in the middle of the night saying, "Should I sell a gazillion shares in my company, and putting on polls and all that. And financial analysts are what are you doing? You
Right,
don't, I mean, it could be even illegal under your own
right,
company's rules and regulate. You can't be doing this.
right,
And, and he was talking about, I'm having a fight with my girlfriend and then this, and it's like, what is this man doing?
right.
Okay. This was many years ago, everyone. And then, we speed it up to the present. I mean, I'm not going to condemn, it's not for me to say, but, this is all very high stakes. I mean, the government, the U.S. government, when it puts its mind to it, can destroy any man and destroy any company.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah,
We
no,
have to remember, everyone, Elon Musk has made the vast amount of a large proportion of his wealth is government contracts. You don't want to be pissing off the
no,
government.
that's why it was so surprising what he did. Um, because I mean, first of all, for him to get so worked up about this big beautiful bill just was very odd. I mean,
It's not his.
it's
It's
not
not his.
his exactly. He wasn't elected to anything. I mean, he serves at the pleasure of the president. So, and he's not like one of these Republican, libertarian Republicans who are obsessed about budget deficits and taxes and revenue and all this. He's not one of them. I mean, yeah, Rand Paul. This is a big thing for him. Yes, Thomas Massey. This is what the bread and butter for them. That this the size of the debt and the deficit. But why did he get so worked up about this and start attacking it? And worse than that, he said, "Kill the bill, kill it." You were just working. Just a few days ago, you were working for this man, and now you're saying that the politicians should kill his bill. So that obviously was going to upset Trump. And then you start unleashing on him, all this Epstein and everything else. And that's when you think, I think he has a problem with drugs. I think the New York Times, was onto something. This is a long-standing problem. Trump probably knew about it. And so that's a real
Well,
questions about his judgment, serious questions about his judgment.
absolutely. And, there's a school of thought, which I actually agree with. These mostly men, but it can also apply to very well successful women, that to be that successful, to be that wealthy, you have to be a psychopath.
Yeah.
And he kind of is. I mean, by his public appearances, it's very odd social skills.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
I and he should be very careful because when he was giving his they were giving him the key and his sending off basically dismissing him,
Right.
okay, getting rid of him,
Right.
and watching. I mean, when a camera just focused exclusively on him, most people don't behave that way.
Right.
Okay, it's very strange behavior.
Right.
And the black eye, well, I guess his kid gave it to him. You got a good, strong kid there. Okay.
Exactly. He's 3 years old. That's one strong kid. At the age of 3, he can do all that. But there's been other stories. that he got into a physical altercation with Scott Bessent, which itself is strange. I mean, when you look at Scott Bessent, you don't.
He's kind I mean, he's basically an Uber beta. Okay.
Yeah, that's right. You don't think of him as, right, jackets off. We're going to sort it out in the car park. But he got into this fight. But Besant was saying to him, allegedly, you're a fraud. You're a total fraud. You said you were going to come up with this $2 trillion in waste, fraud, and abuse. Then it was 1 trillion. Then it's 150 billion, and now it's even worse than that. It's much less than that. So where are all these cuts
Well,
that you?
what he did was going back to what I said earlier. He got rid of federal workers that were involved in regulation. That's what he wanted to do. Okay. And look, to be honest with you, if I were someone like a Musk and you got into a position like that, go after your enemies, go after people that have been, hurt you. Why not? I mean, the world is a tough
Well,
and
I
tumble.
think in,
But he
in
got rid of a lot of federal workers, is what he got rid of. And some of those workers, I'm not sad to see go. Okay.
well, that's the thing. I think cutting government is a good thing. I mean, government is essentially a parasitical entity. I mean, it doesn't do anything productive. It's essentially a parasite on the productive economy. Somebody has to pay people and pay them very nicely. It's a very nice, cushy job. You can never get fired. You have lovely pension, lovely health care. So somebody has to pay for that. It's the productive economy. So I think it's a good thing when you cut back on government. But then you have to deliver. I mean, that was really the problem which I think is what's uh, led to his ouster, which is he didn't really deliver. I mean, I think Trump was feeling after several months, what have you actually been doing here? I mean, where are these promised cuts? So you didn't do it, and then he launches this tirade against the deficit in the big beautiful bill. Well, where were the cuts that you said that we were going to have? That might have helped in the big beautiful bill. So
Well,
yeah, go.
Doge was something that I was skeptical of from the very, very beginning. Why? Because it's red meat. I mean, the base loves it, okay? And they actually really like Elon Musk until 15 minutes ago. And we're going to see how it plays out in the base. I'll be very curious. And then, kill the bill. Then, George, the next step. I saw it with my own eyes. Would you like does the United States need a new political party? I mean, it's like, okay.
He went beyond that because somebody had said impeach Trump, and he said he kind of put a sort of I think it was a friendly emoji. He kind of retweeted that impeach. That's them's fighting words. Trump was twice impeached, and everybody knows that the moment the Democrats get the House back, if they do get the House back November of next year, first order of business, impeach Trump. So for him to raise this, and I think that's why Trump issued that warning, you better not start, funding the Democrats now, because then things are going to get very, very bad for you. I mean, it's because, hey, if that's your plan, impeaching Trump, and that means you're going to pour hundreds of millions of dollars into the coffers of the Democrats, then that is going to be really.
And everyone, considering recent electoral history, that kind of money can tip.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
It can tip
that
which way it goes.
exactly. The
I
Republicans are
mean,
always
not every single race is won by money, but the vast majority are. Okay.
exactly. You only
I
need
mean, one interesting benchmark, correct me if I'm wrong, it was the Michigan AG election.
Wisconsin
Wisconsin,
Supreme
thanks, right.
Court. Yeah, yeah.
That was the beginning of the end because he wasn't the mandarin of the universe that he claimed to be. Okay. I elected Donald Trump. You
Right.
shouldn't say that in
You
public.
you never, never, never say that. You always have to know your place in the hierarchy. Just if you're you're a donor and or you're a staff person, you never say, "Oh, I did this." I did this. It was my money that elected him. That first of all, it's stupid. It's a stupid thing to say. It's the candidate is the one who wins the election. It's not the money, but it's the candidate who wins it. It's stupid, but it's deeply insulting. It's to any candidate
Well, and
when
if
a
there's
donor
any
or a staff person say, "Oh yeah, I did it. It was my brilliant staff work that did it."
I think if there, I'd be curious about your opinion on this, but in the last general election, it wasn't absolutely
No,
wasn't money that made
no,
a difference at all.
no, no.
At all. It was the candidates that made the difference. I mean,
That's right.
that was a $1 billion Harris campaign, right?
Right. Yeah.
I
So,
mean, who's asking where'd the money go with that one? Woo! Okay. They outdid Elon over and over and over again.
yeah, yeah.
Money didn't determine that outcome. It was one of the rare elections we can emphatically say that had nothing to do with money.
No, 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 no. And this is why it's so strange, that Musk he's a man in his 50s, and you would think that you would have enough common sense not to say stupid things like, "Oh, he's ungrateful that I was the one who won this election for him." I mean, you think that you never say anything like that. It's a stupid thing, and it's likely to enrage
Well,
him and enrage other political figures, who you may have ambitions for. They say, "Hey, you're going to go around saying I elected him. It was my money that elected him." That you never say that.
a personality that has really honed his skills is Steve Bannon, because he can disagree with Donald Trump,
Yeah,
but Steve Bannon has the pulse of MAGA, okay? And that's why I think Donald Trump takes him seriously. We don't know to what degree,
right.
but I'm sure he listens to him. But, Elon Musk is he's a loner, okay? And well, I shouldn't say he's a loner when you think in terms of average people, but he's part of this tech oligarchy.
Right.
George, how many people do you think are trying to swoop in to replace
Yeah.
Elon Musk? Oh, they must be doing this.
Yes. Right.
What a foolish little man.
Right.
Because, the big beautiful bill, which George and I have not talked about, I really don't want to talk about it. Okay, but there is a cutout for tech companies, like a 10-year regulation freeze. That's that's what's more valuable than gold, platinum. Okay, so I mean. Uh, Threatening Trump, third party,
Right. Right.
impeach. Uh,
The,
Elon, how's your stock price doing?
yeah. 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 You
I
never
mean,
say that, because no matter how rich you are, a president is always a lot more powerful than you are. I mean, he's got the whole government apparatus.
well, okay, look, let's just look at the real world. Okay, no Democrat, self-described Democrat, is ever going to buy a Tesla again.
Right.
Okay, okay, and now those in MAGA, probably not very many, that can potentially afford a Tesla and liked past tense
Right.
Elon Musk, they're not going to buy.
That's
So where's your consumer base, man? It's dead.
yeah. That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, there was a story. Again, it was like Michigan or Wisconsin. I mean, this old deserted shopping mall is turned into a warehouse for his Teslas. I saw a young girl gleefully going through, clandestinely, of course. Anybody want a Tesla? Look, they're all over here. No one wants them. It's a very bizarre story that, put this in the file of X. This is like an X-Files thing.
Right.
I mean, um, and we brought it up, and it's something with great, great hesitation. I've been around people in my life, in my family, with substance abuse, and I try to be really balanced and actually understanding. Okay, about my parents were alcoholics. Okay, um, but Elon Musk, I mean, you displayed your weaknesses in public.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yep. He did. He did. He did. And it was again very strange, because you would think a man, basically he owns a huge business,
Businesses,
businesses, and
business.
I don't know how many thousands of employees work for him. So you think, this is someone who he has to be very tightly organized. He has to really be very, very much on the ball. He can't afford to start goofing off. And yet that's exactly what he was doing. He was kind of
That's what he did.
goofing off.
Goofing
Uh,
off. That's it.
that
That's
that's
exactly
what's
what he did.
strange.
I mean, George, how many times? Did we mention? Well, what about your businesses, Elon? Are you watching after them?
We did talk about it. He seems to be tweeting all day. Like you think, don't you have businesses to run? I mean, he's got Twitter. I mean, he's got, SpaceX. You got Tesla. I mean, how does he have time to be on Twitter all day? It was bizarre. But even everything when he used to come into the Oval Office and he'd be wearing his T-shirt, and then he would bring his little boy in there, and then
They wear double MAGA hats.
yeah, exactly, wearing a hat inside the Oval Office. It was just odd, particularly when you look at Trump, and Trump is a very formal person. It's always suit tie. I mean, it's always like that, and yet he's there and the doing that thing. So I think we saw almost from the beginning when they got into that thing with the H-1B visa, and then one issue after another, started, mounting up with China, the tariffs, that thing with the Wisconsin Supreme Court election, and then he got into all kinds of disputes with other members of the administration because he sent out this letter. Do you remember that letter he sent out to
What have you
all?
accomplished?
What have you accomplished? Everyone, imagine it's the worst thing you can do is get a letter
Well,
like
no, I mean, in theory, I think it's a wonderful idea. In practice, see, again, you always have to think, good policy, good politics. Okay. That's great when they come together. Okay. It may be a good policy, but it's really bad
I
politics.
don't know. I don't know how many people would be able to list 5 things that they've
I
accomplished.
don't think anybody did.
Yeah, I don't
Okay.
think anyone did, but it
But
but it,
the
it pissed
point
off
is
everybody
here,
else in the cabinet.
the point is that there's no reason to believe that Elon's a Republican. There's no reason to believe he's conservative.
No,
Okay, I stand by, and this is what I thought from the very beginning. He is an extreme, egotistical, narcissistic guy. I mean, he's in that 1%. Okay, maybe that's why he's so successful. Okay,
right,
but he went in there with his own agenda,
right,
and because if it was Trump's agenda, he would have been very, very different. But no, I mean, he didn't touch the department. That's where he makes money. Okay.
right,
Why he's going to mess with the Defense Department? Okay.
right.
So he went in there with his personal agenda and he didn't, he saw unlimited returns. And plus, you have to imagine, a year ago, he talked up Trump. He talked him up.
Right,
And
right.
then you pour money into it, and then you got a keys to the Oval Office, okay? And he overstayed his welcome. They started
He
rolling
did.
up the
He did
carpet.
overstate
They
his welcome.
restarted. They started rolling up that carpet,
Yep,
and Elon,
yep.
it's coming, okay?
Yes,
And he didn't like it. He
yes.
didn't like it.
Yeah. Definitely. I think because his 130 days were up. Where you can have that sort of non remunerated position in the administration, but they could have extended it or given him another position for another 130 days. But that option was not available. Trump really wasn't going to give him another 130 days.
Elon, my people tell me, it's the law, I mean, considering is writing executive orders all day long, he didn't write one for Elon, did he? No. Okay. Oh, it's a problem here. I have to talk to HR. They're giving me some feedback, giving me some guff as Trump is rewriting the executive branch, from top to bottom, but he couldn't get it cut out for poor old Elon.
That's
Give
true.
me a break.
Right. What I'm not sure about is, given his erratic behavior, I mean, I guess they are privately owned companies. I mean, all this, his
Well,
companies.
I was going to mention, that it was one of the great business company stories of all time is Apple, and Apple threw out Steve Jobs at
Right,
one
that's what
point.
I was thinking. I mean, can they do that? But Apple was a publicly owned company, so
I know that Tulsa is publicly traded.
it is okay.
It's
So
publicly
well, that
traded.
means if it's publicly traded, then yeah, then you can absolutely kick him out. I mean, then there's a
Well, I mean, every company has different bylaws, but I don't think. I
if you have
mean,
shareholders, if
like,
you have shareholders,
okay, but major shareholders,
right,
people with serious money,
right,
their lawyers are going to read the fine print
right,
because, I mean, let's just say make believe here. You have 10% of his car company. And he starts goofing off, as George said. You have to have recourse
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
because it's not, he runs the company, but I own part of the
Well,
company.
that's the thing. If the CEO and is basically undermining shareholder value, then absolutely the shareholders have a have a fiduciary duty to get him out. Just move him somewhere else. I mean that's why these publicly traded companies have boards. The whole point of a board is to protect the interests of the shareholders. So that's what I was wondering, given his erratic behavior, and if, and particularly with the story about his extensive drug abuse, whether, essentially the shareholders are going to say, yeah, I'm not happy with him
Well,
running the company.
again, I want to weigh in carefully here. Depending on the degree of his substance problem, the best thing I think Elon could do is suspend his account on X and go into rehab for 2 weeks. Probably he needs longer, but just get out of the news. Okay, just get out of the news
Right.
and reintroduce. He's fabulously rich. You can get people reintroduce you, the new Elon, the new
Right.
it's eminently doable, everybody. Really, it is. Okay. But Elon has to be willing to do it.
Yep. No, I agree. It's that it always works wonders when somebody says, "Yeah, I realize now that I had a substance abuse problem. I need some help with it. So I'm going to go into rehab, get some help from professional helpers, and then you come out. Oh yeah, I'm a new man now, and everything, and that works. I mean,
It works.
particularly
It
in the
works.
United States, very forgiving.
Yeah.
You've admitted that you did something wrong. You're going to get help, and now, hey, I'm a new man. All those things are behind me.
And the shareholders, if he, let's say he went in for 2 weeks, the shareholders would camp out in front of the door, make sure he doesn't get out because they have a vested interest in it. Okay. His brand has been severely damaged,
Right.
but not with the government. And that's what makes this so peculiar is that if you'd left Trump alone, if you'd left this bill alone, everything would have been just fine. Okay. But Trump, I don't think Trump is a vindictive
No,
person, but
no,
what
no,
what Elon what Elon does was just so unnecessary.
right, right.
And being the alpha that he is, Trump could say, this guy's bad news.
No, I think so, and that's why what provoked his ire, his most recent ire with the whole Jeffrey Epstein, is what Trump said about him in that meeting with Mertz. But I don't think Trump said anything that bad about him. He said he was a little disappointed that he suddenly launched into this campaign against the big beautiful bill. And he says, well, why are you doing this? You knew about this bill. You were there from the beginning. Everybody knew about this bill, and now you're going into this tirade against the bill, kill the bill, and so on. And so he expressed his disappointment in Musk. But what Musk did was far beyond anything else. He made personal attacks on Trump. Trump didn't make any personal attacks on him, and indeed
Still,
afterwards he
he
didn't
still
make.
hasn't.
No,
He
he still
still
hasn't. I mean, he said, I think he has a problem. I think he has some mental health issues, but that's a different from making any sort of personal attacks. I mean, Trump could have made personal attacks. These 14 children. I think it's a little excessive.
exactly. There's Elon Musk has more than one Achilles heel.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. We'll see where it goes, but for the sake of all of them, I think let's call it timeout. Okay. Um, I don't want to see these companies destroyed. I think they do add value. I admire great entrepreneurs, but like I say, most of them are very psychotic individuals, and very rare. Every once in a while, we get full display of what that looks like. I mean,
Correct.
Steve Jobs was a Brilliant, brilliant person, but he was not a very nice person.
Right. No, that's true. That's true. But
Very, very hard to be around. He was a loner,
right.
except for the guy he had lunch with all the time, the guy that you know, helped him design the curves and all of the aesthetics. He was probably the only person, not even his love interest, the only person he got along with. And he didn't even, he just talked about aesthetics and calligraphy with
Right.
him. Okay. But if you talked business, I mean, the number of people that I've seen the number of documentaries about Steve Jobs. He could yell at you. He would get blue in the face, start speeding at you. He was a terror to be around. But in total, I have a lot of admiration for
Right.
Steve Jobs, his legacy. Okay.
Right. Right.
So I think, but that's not a stereotype, it's real.
No,
It's
I think
absolutely
so. And I think, look at Zuckerberg. What he's a weird
weird.
guy. Very,
Yeah, but he's smart. He bought an island. He broke all of the environmental regulations, put up walls and reefs, and he just keeps away from the world. That's a good
right.
thing.
But he made a bad decision to get so involved in the 2020 election when he poured in $500 million essentially for the Democratic Party. That didn't do him any good, didn't do his brand any good. And now he's in some trouble. I mean, admittedly, that was already started some time ago with Facebook and this whole antitrust suit that the government is pursuing. Trump isn't doing him any favors. I mean, I think he's going to lose this case. And Trump isn't really cutting him any slack. And so this FTC suit against Zuckerberg, I think is going to lead to a breakup of Facebook.
Yeah. I feel really bad for the
Exactly. God, poor guy.
I
I
just
feel
feel really bad for him. Okay. Facebook is like a supernova. It's already burst because little did they know that Facebook would be a boomer thing, not a young person's thing. And so the vast majority of them are boomers, and boomers are checking out every single day,
well. That's why he's
quite
got
literally.
WhatsApp. WhatsApp is
Yeah, and all that. Yeah, but
Instagram.
there's
Right.
so many more competitors out there now. What's up is it's a poor cousin to so many other these. Even like Signal apparently is better, which I've never seen in my life. Okay. Anyway, we're going afield. We're continuing our wrap up here. We're going to do our live stream tomorrow at 10 o'clock Eastern time. We seem to have. George and I both have lucky coins in our pockets, like we rub it right before. Is it going to work? Is it going to work? Okay, it has. Uh,
That's right.
and George will go live stream on Tuesday
Tuesday,
himself.
3 p.m. Eastern time. And speaking of lucky coins, suddenly Buddy's ears perk up. Yeah, lucky coins. I mean, so far we're unlucky because there are no coins. So once again, the dogs are indignant. The moment they hear words like coins, it reminds them of lack of. So if you have any money at all lying around, big bills, high denomination, crypto, gold, silver, everything into the tip jar. We're very grateful for all of your help, friendship, and support. The more you're able to donate, the more of these videos we can make, the more we can improve the technology. And we're going to keep these dogs on an even keel for as long as possible. It's getting harder and harder. So remember, if you like the gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe. See you soon. Bye bye.